About this?
Somebody should do something.
That's no, that's from last week.
Just make sure that he
What are we doing the
follows
barbecue?
up with it. If not, then he doesn't know. How are you?
Good to see you.
Okay, good to see you.
That was quick. I'm calling to order the Tuesday, April 3rd, 2012 meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of South Orange Village. May we have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Don,
Here.
Mr. DeScalo, Mr. Groman,
Here.
Mr. Parlapiano,
Here.
Mr. Reeves,
Here.
Mr. Semper,
Here, please.
Mr. Aller, Mr. Shapiro, and Ms. Werwin.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, PL 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by publishing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2012 in the December 2011 edition of the South Orange Maplewood News Record, and by filing said notice in the office of the village clerk. The first bit of business tonight is approval of minutes from our previous meeting on February 7th. Do we have any questions about the minutes?
No.
Okay. Can we have a motion to accept the minutes? I read the minutes. I'll just state for the record, I read the minutes, and they were accurate, and they reflected what happened in the meeting.
I'll move to have the minutes accepted and approved.
Second?
Okay, Mr. Don,
Yes.
Mr. Groman,
Yes.
Mr. Parlapiano,
Abstain.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Semper,
Yes.
Mr. Aller,
Yes.
and Ms. Werwin.
Thank you. So the business then this evening is Valley Barbecue at 311 Valley Street. Preliminary site plan and final site plan. Applicant proposes to change use from retail to restaurant and takeout. Why don't you come forward? Before we get started, I wanted to let the applicant know that Mr. Parlapiano was not here last month. He has not yet reviewed the video. But we have 6 people here, so we have 6 voting. It would be up to you, as you see the evening goes on, whether you would want to wait to have Mr. Parlapiano view the video and then come back for a vote where we would have a 7th voting member. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. So let's see how it goes, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, Michael Bertone on behalf of the applicant. As the board is well aware, last time we had 3 central issues. First issue was the smoke from the barbecue, how that would affect the neighbors. Second issue was the parking. And the third major issue was the so-called fast food ordinance, how that affected this particular application. That having been said, I would like to call the architect again at this time.
I'm sorry, just 1 minute.
They're having trouble hearing you.
Then there might be a mic problem.
Is the mic?
No, it's on.
It's on. Just stand closely to the mic, please. I'm sorry.
It's like being, a
Okay.
recording artist.
So I'd like to recall the architect at this time.
Okay.
Yes, good evening.
Do we need to re-swear him?
You're still sworn? You understand you're still sworn?
I guess.
Yes.
I did last time.
Do you understand you're still sworn?
Oh, yes, yes. Sorry.
Okay. Mr. Amaral, one of the board's concerns the last time we met was the lighting cut sheets. Can you, have you revised your drawings to show those lighting
Yes.
cut sheets?
Yes, I provided another sheet, a third sheet. You should all receive it. I basically added a couple more light poles along the property at the rear. And so then I included the photovoltaic.
We're having
Levels.
trouble hearing you.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Okay, just hold it closer.
So I revised the lighting levels to more of a standard. Added a couple more lights. Included is on the sheet the lighting cuts and some information on the lighting fixtures.
Can you just point out quickly where the lighting is?
There will be 2 light fixtures wall mounted up against the rear of the building. There will be 3 light poles along the left side of the property and 4 light poles along the right side of the property. And that should cover the entire property.
Okay, and in the front of the building?
Well, there's an existing, sorry, I want to say existing. It's existing lighting, but we are providing a new awning over the front door.
Okay. One of the concerns raised last time was the possibility, not only the possibility, the probability of smoke from the barbecue restaurant if in fact this application is approved. Have you and the applicant had the opportunity to address that smoke issue?
Yeah, I got some information regarding these air cleaners, basically it's called. It's called an electrostatic air cleaners. I spoke with a representative of this company. They basically provide a unit that can be installed either on the rooftop or inside the building. Our difficulty with this property is putting it on the roof. Typically, you put it on the roof. It's a sloped ceiling. So to access it, and we have to build basically like a walking platform along the side of it. So I think it's a little bit more complicated. I would like to put the unit inside over the hood. We have a little bit of space that it may fit. But the company, they'll said that they send out a representative and they'll look at it and they'll advise us what's the best thing or location to install it.
All right, and it's your understanding...
I did provide Mr. Sal Renda a copy of the cut sheet of this machine.
And is it your understanding that the... I'm sorry.
No, we're just signaling friends. Never mind.
Oh, okay, I thought that was a question, sorry. Is it your understanding that the applicant will, as a condition of approval of this application, install this smoke eating or clearing system?
Correct. It basically removes odor, grease, and it lowers the amount of fumes that go out, basically.
Okay. I have no further questions of the architect.
Okay, so you addressed then, the architect has addressed then the smoke and the lighting issue. So why don't we go ahead and ask questions about both of those? Mr. Don.
Just want to confirm, because you have given us 2 cuts, one for a roof-mounted unit and one for a unit that mounts basically in the hood above the cooking equipment. So you're going to go with the one that's inside the building?
I would prefer.
Okay. Well, I think that we would prefer too, because I don't know how you would access one on the roof, because
Exactly.
I know, having some experience with these, you have to be able to get to them to clean them.
To clean the filters. Right?
This is self-cleaning machine.
Okay.
So this is not, it's called an electrostatic air cleaners. It doesn't require as much maintenance or cleaning, but it still needs, some maintenance.
I will say that these really do a good job as far as cutting down fumes and smoke.
Okay.
So this is something that I think is a good addition.
Okay, it's the real deal. It's not a cheap
Correct.
version.
Correct.
Okay. Because that was one of the concerns of the board about the odor. Okay, so Mr. Don, have they
That's it.
addressed that to your satisfaction?
Yes.
Do we have other questions about the smoking?
Sir, how many CFM are you looking at? Which one of these units are you getting?
It's the F72.
F72 is not self-cleaning, according to these cut sheets. Is that correct?
It says, It says it don't require frequent cleaning.
Yeah.
F-17
Self-cleaning model
right,
is the auto clean, and
correct,
this is the F-72, that's not self-cleaning. So
correct,
that is going to take more maintenance than the self-clean.
correct.
But you're getting this with the F-72, so are you going to be able to do that and put it inside the building?
Correct, correct.
Okay. And
So the question is, inside the building, you will still be able to clean the unit from
Correct.
inside the building?
Right. It's like the, you put the sides, the ceiling panels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Bertone, are you offering these as
I-
exhibits?
Yes, please, if we can have them marked as Exhibit A.
I don't think it's A. No number, what letter we're on? Jay? No letter we're up to?
You're a member of the public?
I live right across the street.
Okay, there were copies in the village hall. So at this point, there should be copies of all that in the village hall.
excuse me, if we're finished with this tonight, you can have my copy.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just,
Are these the exhibits that you're on here? Why don't we just start at a letter far enough down in the alphabet that you don't have to worry about that.
This is gonna cause an issue with us in between that was missing. I got 4 that I can see, Jay.
Could I suggest, since today's the 3rd, we mark it 3A, 3B, so on?
Unless we get an answer from our secretary.
Last one I had was A3.
3.
I got A3 photos and A4 photos.
I have A3 photos, so I could have just missed one.
All right, make it A1 from April 3rd.
A1 from April 3rd. And that is the hood. This exhaust.
That's this one?
Yes.
This is it's the 3-page exhibit, Mr. Bertone?
Yes, sir.
There's actually 2 of them. There's the
What do you
air
call it?
quality engineering unit, which would be actually, I think, the unit that would be on roof mounted, I think. And the other one, the Gaylord Industries, which is the one that's sort of hood mounted.
So we're gonna mark this 3-page exhibit, the title page, kitchen exhausting air cleaning systems as A1 from tonight.
Thank you.
And are they not offering this other one? That's not the one they're going to use, right? You're going to use the ELX, the Gaylord series, or are you using?
Oh, no, that's, I believe I received from
From the
Mr.
board.
Render,
Yes.
that version.
Okay, so we sent you that as an
Right,
example. Okay, so
right.
that's not offered.
That's not the
Okay,
one,
okay,
right.
great. Thank you. Okay, other questions about the smoke hood?
yes.
Mr. Adler?
As I'm looking at it, I'm seeing 2 separate things. One is the hood and ventilation system, which I guess is the Gaylord or something like it. That goes over the stove, right? And then there's the cleaning system, which is separate. You can have a ventilator without a cleaning system.
Correct. That was on the prior plan, the ventilation, the exhaust hood. The cleaning system is independent, as I
Okay,
understand.
so the cleaning system is the,
It's, in other words, before the smoke goes out, it gets cleaned, and then it's exhausted out.
okay, you're saying these cleaners go into this hood or one like it?
It's above it. After the hood, the exhaust goes through that,
Right,
through those, like, in other words, when you look at the hood, you have the filters.
yep.
and then it goes through that, and then it goes through this machine, and then it goes outdoors.
Right, so you really need both of these. You need a hood.
Yeah, and you need this and
And
this,
air.
and then the outside, there's a fan that goes up on the roof.
Okay, if it doesn't fit inside the building, are you gonna need any kind of variance for whatever you have to build on top of the building?
No. We basically would access the roof through the fire escape. At the rear of the building, there's an existing fire escape on the side of the building. You can see in one of the pictures, in one of the photos. And from that platform, we would have to provide a staircase that goes up on the roof.
You don't understand?
I understand.
Okay. Mr. Parlapiano.
Do we know that the output from this cleaner meets the town's ordinance in terms of smoke, smells? Are there specific requirements? I'm sort of looking at Sal's empty chair, but are there specific requirements in the ordinance that this has to meet, or is it just an aesthetic quality of life?
None that I'm aware of, but it's
Yeah, I do not know specifically the answer, but there are standards that when they go for building permit and health code, that they would have to meet. I would assume that through your normal process, you would have to give plans that would show that, correct?
Yeah, we have to go to the first department, you have to go through his health department.
What I'm asking is, this, I mean, I read the spec sheet, and it sounds like a serious piece of equipment. It's good that you're familiar with it. But are we saying that this is sufficient?
I don't think that we have the right to overrule any ordinance which would require a certain amount. So
Right.
if it was approved and it couldn't pass the health department inspection, they would have to come back in any event.
That's right, that's what I would think, right? So that what we're saying is, this feels like a good planning effort, it feels like the right kind of equipment, but it still has to meet
Whatever other
whatever
codes
other
apply.
tests are in the ordinances and law.
What happens if this issue never came up with the hood and the cleaning, and we approved the application exclusive of this issue? Then would the applicant then face this barrier
At a later date.
at a later date? So if that's the case, then the question, why are we discussing it?
Right.
If it's already subject to standards that we can't comment on, and that would otherwise be imposed.
Well, I'm not sure there are many standards. I'm not aware of what standards there are. There's not something in our ordinance book.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of something that would say, parts per million of particulate matter or smell, but
And
there is nothing.
The applicant initially was silent about the exhaust, and we were concerned that they proposed something that was engineered specifically to diminish the exhaust.
Right.
Now, you may be absolutely right that code may already have an even yet higher standard, but perhaps not. So at least now, we've done the diligence of making
Right.
them address the issue.
Right. Okay.
Ma'am, the way we'll work it is when we're through with each expert, you can ask each expert, including the architect, any question you want. And then at the end, what we do is if you have a statement, pro or con, you can make that statement at the end. So I'll make sure you get your opportunity to ask questions, okay? We're still asking questions of the architect, and then when we're done, you get your turn. Okay. All right, other questions about the ventilation?
If we have a concern regarding the ventilation, can we just say that if this is a condition, that it has to be at least this, and if not more, so they wouldn't have to come back if the health department had a higher standard? We could say at least this, as opposed to it has to be this.
I don't
At
think
least
that's
it's
the purview of the
sufficient.
board to impose restrictions greater than that would otherwise be.
Well, this is what they're proposing to do. If we think this is okay, this would meet our standard. If the code is even higher for some reason, well, then it's higher, and then it doesn't really matter what we say. They've got to meet that standard.
I mean, I only mentioned that because Mr. Bartone said something about conditional, maybe I didn't hear it
No,
correctly.
he did. He said this would be
Okay.
a condition of approval.
Of any approval.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't mean to impose something you didn't say, but that's what I
Yeah,
thought. I
we're
heard.
saying that we want to see this as a minimum standard. Okay? Yes.
You may want to, if I may ask the architect a question, have you reviewed the ordinances and codes with respect to this type of ventilation, and is this addressed within the code of the village?
I've done a number of these barbecue restaurants, including right now I have one under construction in Plainfield and another one in North Plainfield. In general, these cleaners are not installed in units. It's not required.
Are there standards, if they are, as options within the health code or construction code that would address these types of units?
No.
Would the applicant be willing, let's assume that there is no other regulation, health code related, or anything that would impose a minimum standard, would the applicant be willing to voluntarily stipulate to this arrangement, even if it turns out that it would not otherwise be required by any other regulation?
Well, we are providing, yes.
I just want to make sure.
Yes,
That's the
Commissioner
way
Conlon,
around this, because
yes.
what I'm concerned about is I don't want to be a substitute for other regulations in which we're not empowered, so that if you voluntarily would stipulate to this, then it turns into an academic issue, and we can move on that issue.
The applicant also stipulated, even if it's not required by a health or building code ordinance, because I think it goes to the negative criteria and the quality of life, the impact that the project will have on the neighboring properties. So, yes, indeed, we will stipulate.
It was well asked. Okay, good, thank you. We have other questions about the ventilation?
Thank you.
Okay, the architect,
I'm sorry, just one, so which F-72 unit air cleaner are you planning to install? There are 6 here.
He said someone from the company is going to come visit, so maybe they would then select which one is required.
I have a feeling that the sizing of that unit is a function of the CFM of the hood, which is a function of the equipment that goes under the hood. So they may not have had it, may not be fully engineered at this point.
See, I have a shop drawing for the hood, and they're looking at the CFMs. This is a small hood. We generally do the 10,000 CFM unit. Boy, the lettering is so small.
Mr. Armour, would it be fair to say that the cleaning unit will be engineered pursuant to the specifications of the hood by the airflow that the hood utilizes?
Yes, correct. They generally label here. Oh. I believe this was a 7,000 CFM unit. See, currently, I know the representative, he sent me the information on the unit. I don't have the email on me now. But this is a small hood.
okay, do we as a board particularly need to know about what unit there's 5 units I see here: auto clean, and then F-72A and B.
We don't need to know that anymore, we need to know the CFM of the hood.
Do we need to know the CF? I don't,
It's an engineering
Right.
issue, it's a building permit issue.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm not concerned about that. So, you know, they've got various things here to cover, it looks like up to 8,000 CFM is cubic feet per minute, I assume. And that's good enough for me. It's,
Okay.
again, it's more than was originally proposed, and they've addressed the issue.
Maybe a way to approach it is to say that if we were to approve the application, that it would be contingent upon the resolution of the particular unit between discussions with Sal as the engineer. Would that be acceptable?
Yes, we need to coordinate with the manufacturer's expert and with Sal as well.
Yeah, no, my feeling is that you have a certain size, stove, and the only thing we really, I guess, could expect is a unit that's commensurate and used with a stove of that type, and that's not our
Exactly
purview
right.
to be figuring this out, and leave it to people smarter than we are in the engineering sense. So that's, I think, something that we don't need to spend the board's time on. Just my opinion.
These cuts go along with the construction drawings. So this will all be provided to Sal so he can review it.
Can we move on to the issue of the lighting? We're gonna have us. Let's move on to the lighting issue for the architect. Do you have any questions about the lighting? I'm particularly interested in hearing what you have to say, Mr. John. Do you have any particular concern?
No, I think that what's being proposed now is more sensible than what was being proposed last time, because these are actually lights that are meant to be put on a pole. And I think they're also lights that are, again, they're not what I would call parking lot lights. They're more area lights, which are more appropriate for this size parking area. I think that it's providing a reasonable level of light. I mean, we're talking at that outside ring that you see on that plan is 0.1 foot candles, so it's a fairly low level, but it does provide some light back there, because right now it's really dark. It's pitch black at night, so. I don't have any particular questions about the lighting. I guess we could just talk to hours of operation if you want to get into that.
Well, hours of operation isn't that, is there a town ordinance on hours of operation for restaurants?
No, I mean,
Lighting
just for the lights.
Parking lot.
Oh, for the parking?
Yeah.
Those are there all night.
Well, it faces the park. Right, that lighting faces the park. It doesn't face any other residential.
Well, there's the house that's immediately to the south. I mean, it's not shining in that direction, but obviously it would be an illuminated parking lot. So we would probably want them to go out when they close, 10.
Well, the purpose of the parking lot is for the residential units upstairs, so I don't think it would be tied to that.
And the lights do shine down, isn't that
Correct. Yeah, but they should be turned off once the restaurant closes. They will be shut down, I would assume. I mean, there would be no reason to leave the lights on all night long. It's a residential, I mean, it's a building. The people in general go through the front door to go out. But
In the parking plan, it says that the spots in the back will be used for the residential units and the street parking will be used. So I don't think that's the case, right? I think these are for people coming home at night from work.
Well, they have an apartment upstairs, so do you keep? Would you want to keep lights on all night?
Could be motion.
And could be motion. And does this board really care? Given that these lights face towards a park, they can. I can tell you personally that lights can matter if they're facing on a residential home, whether apartment or otherwise. But Do we really care in this particular instance, when they're on and when they're off?
I really don't think it's necessary.
They don't have another apartment building right next door to them. They have the open park, which will not be occupied at night.
You leave those lights on in the summertime, the kids go in the park.
So what's going to happen is they're going to come to some arrangement with the upstairs neighbor, the upstairs tenant, and they're going to decide when they're going to turn them off at night when the tenant complains.
Yep.
I mean, I don't have strong feelings about it one way or the
I'm not
other.
interested in going down that road. I would be concerned if it was facing another apartment, but it's not. Ms. Gruel, are we missing anything?
No, as a matter of fact, I would say that these lights are low. They're 10-foot light poles, and, you know, they seem, when you look at the photometrics, it's pretty defined to the area, and I would agree. I think it's fine if they choose how they want to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, the lights in these fixtures are 42 watts. I mean, it's not like we're dealing with a 500 watt metal halide fixture that you would have in a parking lot, so.
Yeah.
It's not even as bright as the floodlight that you would have over your garage, essentially.
Okay. Right, before we release the architect, there were some other issues, actually, that the board was concerned about, not merely the exhaust and the lighting, and then we have the parking and the fast food ordinance. Were there others that the architect would talk to? Smoke cooking garage, that would be we were interested in hearing from the owner or somebody who could speak about what the purpose of that garage was down there. Other fast food within 500 feet, that will go with the fast food discussion that I'm sure you're going to have. Deed restriction, that's not for the architect.
Mr. Chairman, we did submit the deed for review, and we do have the owner here who can testify
Okay.
in that regard.
So you're gonna talk about that in a moment?
Sure.
Okay. And then the handicapped access. That would be something for the architect to talk about. Remember, I thought we had pretty much settled it, though, that the handicapped access would be in the back there. You would create a handicap space?
There's a handicap parking spaces at the rear,
Right.
and the access, it can go through the front door and along the side of the building, or we can provide a ramp at the back of the building. But we think that the front door is sufficient.
Okay. The front door is sufficient, but that's not that little walkway is not their property. We've established that. So if you're going to have a handicapped access, you got to have some way to access it. Is there any way to access it in back by doing a ramp?
Yes, it's doable.
I think you're going to have to do a ramp. We can't.
That's fine.
You know, I mean, it would make sense to go up front, but it's not your property.
That's fine.
So.
There's only like an 8-foot difference in elevation, so we can do, it's a small ramp.
It's a small ramp?
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Do we need renderings of that, Mr. Don?
I mean, there's certainly room for it to fit there. I don't think so. I mean, again, that could be a condition that we could just have him work out with Sal.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any concerns about that ramp? It has to go in back. They can't go up the side, because at some point in the future, the town may claim that little bit of so-called sidewalk. And we don't want to set this applicant up to get in trouble later on. I'm okay with him working it out with Mr. Rinda, because we've done this sort of low-level stuff without our explicit involvement in the past.
Okay.
It's assuming if we were to approve this, of course. That remains to be seen. Okay, so that's the ramp. All right, so I guess that takes care of the issues that we have with the architect. Ms. Gruhl, do you have any other questions of the architect?
I guess it would be more of the owner, again, that rear garage and how that relates to what is being proposed and such.
Okay.
No, the ramp, and I think it's reasonable to have the ramp design and discussion, as part of the condition of approval, if in fact the board approves.
We had one more thing, I think, for the architect. I think this is from our first meeting. The awning, there was discussion regarding the words being on a drop flap and a mention of conditional, that they're going to comply with the sign ordinance, and I think then we moved on. Something about words being on a drop flap versus being on the actual awning itself. And there was mention of a sign ordinance compliance. That's just from my notes.
I think their testimony was that they were going to comply with the sign ordinance.
Yeah, I remember that was the testimony, they would comply with the sign ordinance. I don't think we got into what actually that they were going to do. I don't remember any talk of, you're probably correct, I don't remember.
It's in my notes, I don't know.
Well, do you have any
No, nothing,
question?
I'm just trying to serve with the memory.
Okay, so the applicant is aware there's a sign ordinance.
Correct.
Specifies.
Yes. Yeah, we have to provide the shop drawing.
Okay. Other questions for the architect? Okay, so now we move on to members of the public who will have questions for the architect. So, ma'am, come on up and state your name. And what is it? You have to state their address too? Or
Only during public comment.
Only during public comment. Okay, so let me tell you, just not many rules, but the rules are that right now you're just asked questions of what the architect said here this evening. Other matters about other fast food restaurants, you can ask somebody else at another point. Okay.
Hi, my name is Cindy Cardone, and I live directly across the street from the proposed fast food. I guess my question to you is, has this type of vent ever been installed in a building that's 1 foot, like less than a foot from a park that 150 preschoolers play in daily? Has that ever, as far as any health concerns go? I mean, that's a lot of young children, not grown children, whose lungs are a little bit more susceptible to.
We do these restaurants everywhere. I mean, there's restaurants everywhere, even including in parks.
Including by parks, playgrounds.
Look, Branchbrook, we do even restaurants inside in the parks itself. I mean, this is not, and we're not
So you haven't had any health concerns? Because I know everybody here has had a barbecue before. We know the smoke that goes with the barbecue. We know the smell that goes with the barbecue. With this amount of preschoolers daily playing in this park, that's a concern of mine. I am a former preschool teacher, an advocate for children, and I do live across the street, but their lungs are little.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's the basis of your question? Is there some scientific data, or is it just?
There's got to be a lot of smoke coming through there, and does
Well,
the vent really
that's an
protect the
assumption.
health of young children?
That's part of the reason why we asked for this filter.
I think that's a given with a barbecue.
It's not a given.
It's a
It's not-
tremendous
quite
amount of
honestly-
smoke.
quite honestly,
Well,
it's not a
You
given.
might have an older system on one of your other Burnett barbecues then. That you could be right. Maybe this is an upgrade from what they have.
It just seems that the question is not specific enough for the architect to really give you an answer.
I guess that you've never had any health concerns with the amount of smoke that comes out of a barbecue, and that this is sufficient to...
Yes, this is normal procedure.
Okay, normal procedure is...
Actually, we're doing
doesn't have any health concerns that you know of.
We're doing a filter.
Excuse me, but, Mr. Don is right. You're asking him as though he's a medical witness. I think you have, I'm not trying to make light of it. Look, I have kids too.
My next question...
Excuse me.
Oh.
But you have the opportunity to review the materials, the specifications. You also have the opportunity, since we've discussed a little while ago, that the issue of the adequacy of the unit that's going to be used is going to be between the applicant, the architect, and our engineer, and I think that's the appropriate place to raise these issues. I'm not belittling or minimizing your concerns,
understand.
but I'm just
I do
saying,
understand.
asking him whether he's ever had a concern is completely irrelevant to
Okay.
the whole process.
So we wouldn't know how to get that question answered?
It's not the
really.
question you're gonna,
Not the
it's not a
question
question
he
asked to
can
an
answer.
architect. It's asking the architect if he's ever had a health concern about it. That's,
Okay, well, I guess he's read up on this, and, maybe it has come up. I apologize. My
no need
second
to apologize.
question
We're
would
just trying
be...
to keep the
I keep
testimony
it
to what
going,
he's
too.
qualified to testify
I totally
to.
understand. I'm not good at this, but I'll do my best.
We're gonna try to help you. It's okay.
The parking, do you think people will really park in that parking lot, or will they be using the parking on the street that the parents use for the playground?
If I may, I think that question is better reserved for the traffic engineer part.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
I
well, I guess
agree.
that would be the two questions I have. The other thing is, and I could be wrong, I thought watts had to do with the power used, not the strength of a light fixture. I could be wrong. I'm thinking that's when you made the comment, it's only 45 watts. That's what I believe, that wattage is what power is used, not necessarily.
It's both. A 100-watt bulb puts out more light than a 60-watt bulb.
Okay, all right, so it's a watt bulb, it's
Well,
not how many watts
right.
it is.
I think
Okay.
watts is a power unit, but it's proportional to the lumens, which is a light output. So I think it's a general understanding that a 100-watt bulb is what we see in an old-fashioned 100-watt bulb.
Yeah, I just looked at the home bulbs, they're 13 watts, but they throw out 100 watts of power, like they don't use as much energy, so that's kind of what I learned this.
We have other questions?
I just have one question. John Cardone.
Go ahead.
My question is...
Would you mind for the record just giving us your, would you mind for the record just giving us your address?
Excuse me?
Just for the record, what is your address?
310 Valley Street.
Thanks.
The Burnett Barbecue on Burnett Avenue, do you have this system in that store?
No, they don't.
Okay, because I've been past there, I've been around there, good food, by the way, but there's constant smoke. I mean, until 10 o'clock at night, you could be a block away from that place, and if the wind blows the right way, you're gonna smell it.
Were you at the
Sir-
last meeting?
Sir,
No, I wasn't.
wait.
That's-
And I'll tell you
that's
what,
part
I
of
had
the reason.
surgery February 7th, if that was the last meeting. I wasn't notified of any other meeting, other than that one.
Well, the reason why this issue came up was at the testimony at the last meeting, we were concerned about the smoke.
I could not make it.
Okay, you're asking a question of the architect. You'll get your opportunity to talk
Okay.
about pros and cons in a few minutes.
Okay. Well,
So-
I guess my question just was, was it the same system you had? Because I do know how, I do not like that one.
No, I didn't do that one, but I've done additional work on that building, so I'm familiar with
I
it.
mean,
With this,
people
with
that live around here complain about it, and
it's I know what the problems are, but that's not.
Let me ask a question of the architect this way to help, because I'm concerned that the public is gentlewomen and gentlemen are not maybe appreciating what it seems like the board has tried to do. There was no initial testimony about any type of exhaust that they were doing. We asked them to consider air quality in the exhaust. What you're saying here, I'm asking the architect, is this type of exhaust system, this air cleaner, more than a higher standard than is usually put in a restaurant of this sort?
Only like restaurants such as hotels, those are the type of restaurants that install these units. Very few towns, the only town that I've encountered this issue was Hillside. No other town requires these filters. It's not required. It's a good thing to have, certainly. In a barbecue like this, it's a small restaurant. It's not. It's the fumes that's released is not like it's not a big restaurant. Even if it's working 24 hours, it's not a high output. I do some of these barbecue restaurants where we do 2 pits, and that's the one that he's referring, the one on Burnett on Union, in Union, that they do 2 pits, and they do a large volume of takeout orders. That's their main function, is takeout orders.
But you don't
They
know
have-
what
they
type
have-
of exhaust they have in
Oh,
there?
I'm kind of familiar, because like I said, they have people that go around dropping off, making deliveries all day long. So that's why their output is very high. So they do put a lot of,
Okay, but Mike,
but this is not the case. This is a small restaurant and it's only one pit.
okay, so again, this that you're proposing is above the normal standard in most towns?
Correct.
Okay. All right, do we have, sir?
Anthony Molinaro. I'm the owner. 311 Valley Street.
Okay.
My concern, I got a tenant upstairs, residential, as you know.
Questions
My
for the
concern.
architect? Do you have questions for the architect?
Oh, my concern to him was, originally was the smoke for the tenant upstairs. And what he presented, I feel, satisfactory. I wouldn't have problem with tenants upstairs smelling smoke.
Okay,
That's
you need to speak right into the microphone. So, Mr. Molinaro, you're the owner of this property?
Yes.
Okay. You kind of made a statement there. Do you have a question for the architect?
Oh, the question was, is it going to be satisfactory for my tenant upstairs?
Yes.
That was it.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the architect? You're trying to get away very quickly, I can see.
I have another meeting in Madison,
Okay.
that's why.
Any other questions for the architect?
I just want to clarify about the signage, because what is shown on the plans is not in compliance with the ordinance. So obviously, as one of the conditions would be that it would be compliant, you would have it compliant with, and that these plans don't necessarily reflect what is compliant with the ordinance,
Okay.
correct?
The signage must be compliant with the ordinance.
And
That-
that these do not comply with the ordinance.
If that is the case, the signage will comply with the ordinance.
Good.
That's-
How are they
Just
not,
wanna clarify.
do you know how they're not in compliance?
They are limited in terms of what the signage can be on an awning. It can't be where it is located on the awning, exactly what was stated.
Very well done. Okay, good. So all right, so we picked up on that. So they have to do a change to the awning, the signage on the awning.
That's correct. And I assume, just to clarify, that there is no other signage proposed?
Correct.
So it's right at this point in time, what is proposed is signage only on
The awning,
awning or something?
the awning will have to be redesigned a little bit
Okay.
to meet.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, at this time, I'd like to call the engineer and planner, Hal Simoff.
Thank you.
Did you testify?
Did you testify?
Yes.
Okay.
You testified before, Mr. Simon?
A couple times.
Okay. You still under oath to realize that?
No, he has not testified on this
Not here?
application.
Doesn't
All right.
carry over?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give here this evening is the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Hal Simoff, Simoff, 2 Shunpike Road, Madison, New Jersey.
Mr. Simoff, can you give the board a brief overview of your educational background and professional
Yes, I've been
licenses?
qualified previous occasions on this, by this board. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a licensed professional planner. I've been in the practice, I've been licensed since the early 80s. I've been in the practice of traffic, my main expertise is traffic engineering, but I've also been qualified as a professional planner.
Mr. Chairman, will you accept our expert?
Do we have any questions? Okay, we accept your expert.
Thank you. Mr. Simoff, have you had an opportunity to review this application?
Yes, I submitted a memo to the board dated March 16th that I emailed to Sal Renda, and I also sent him multiple copies that he received, so I assume that the board is in possession of those memos. I'd just like to,
Mr. Chair, if we could have that memo marked, please.
Okay, so this would be Mr. Simoff's report
Report, yes.
that we received via email. Simoff Engineering Associates, March 16, 2012.
That's correct.
A2 on April 3rd, Mr. Chairman.
so I'd just like to walk the board through the memo quickly. In the introduction, I delineate the things I reviewed as part of my preparation for this analysis. The South Orange zoning ordinance, the smart growth plan, the master plan update, site plan, reference material for parking requirements, and the memo prepared by Susan Brule's firm. And as you know, the proposed use is a conditional use, so this is a D3 variance. The major issue that I think the board should consider in the deliberations of a D3 variance, a conditional use variance, is what's the difference between the...
Speak right into the microphone, please.
What's the difference between the conditional uses and the permitted uses, and how the board can evaluate those? And on page 2, at the bottom, I list the uses that are permitted in the B3. But as you see, the last one is restaurants, convenience stores, retail markets, and catering kitchens. So a restaurant is permitted in the zone. What the interpretation of a fast food is the main issue that I'd like to address. And then at the top of page 3, I quote in italics the definition of a fast food based on your ordinance. It says a public eating place where prepared foods are available for on and off site, consumption upon a short waiting period. Orders are placed by the customer at the counter and primarily served in disposable wrappers, containers, or plates, and where wait service is not available. This does not include restaurants that have takeout as an accessory use. I would suggest that this proposed use is at best a hybrid. I think it could be construed either way, but one might also, because I've been speaking to the operator, the tenant, one of the factors of this is that people will come to the counter, place their order, sit down, and somebody will bring the food to the table. So that effectively is wait service. So, I mean, I understand at the last meeting went through a long discussion of whether this is a fast food or whether it's a restaurant, but I think that factor is important. Now, the next question is, looking at the conditional use requirements for a fast food, the fast food requirements that start on page 3 and go on to page 4 are classically for a McDonald's, a Burger King, a facility with a drive-through, because they talk about drive-throughs and distances from property lines, and this is closer to a restaurant than a fast food. And I understand the zoning and the criteria and the suggestions why fast foods have to be separated and why they have to be a certain distance from a residential, as an example, because they have outdoor ordering, or they have people consuming food in their cars, or something like that is characteristic of a fast food. They have a loudspeaker where you place your order and then you pull up to the drive-through, and they have outdoor activity. That's not the case in this proposed use. It's all anticipated to be enclosed in the building. No order stations outside, no drive-through, no stacking, which would have an effect on traffic, on circulation, on impacts on residential, versus a restaurant. There's restaurants along this section of Valley Street, excuse me, and this is not inconsistent. It is consistent with those existing restaurants. Now, I go into, on page 4, I talk about the parking requirements for a based on the South Orange ordinance. I believe it's for a restaurant, they say 1 space for each 50 square feet of devoted to patron use. That would calculate out at 20 spaces for the proposed use. Let me also put in perspective, there's 20 seats. So let's evaluate these parking requirements based on 20 seats in the facility. For a fast food, it's 1 space for every 30 square feet of floor area of the entire building. And, that would require 40 spaces if you use the first floor. It would be 80 spaces if you say the entire building. Now, I don't think the ordinance intended us to require parking for the second floor, but if you do, then, because it quotes it as 1 for every 30 square feet of the entire building, it would be somewhere between 40 and 80 spaces. And then there's another section of your ordinance that says 1 space for every 3 seats, and which calculates to 7 parking spaces. So we have a big diversion of parking requirements based on the South Orange ordinance for different types of restaurant uses.
Where does it say that as far as restaurant use, 1 space for every 3 seats? Does that refer to restaurant use in our town, or?
I believe it is in the ordinance. I didn't quote the section.
Okay, we'll look at it. You can go ahead.
Now, so based on that, I went back and I looked at the reference material. And the Institute of Transportation Engineers has done studies of different types of restaurant uses. They have a quality in their parking generation publication. They have quality restaurant. They have a high turnover sit-down restaurant, kind of akin to something like a diner. And then they have a fast food. And they also characterize the fast food with and without drive-through. So these 4 uses have a range in the ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers publication, between 0.35 per seat and 0.5 for a 0.52 for a quality restaurant without drive-through. I'm sorry, fast food without drive-through. So if we use the most critical factor in the ITE publication, that would come to about 10 spaces. And when you step back and you look at the criteria and say, how do these criteria mesh with the seating in this proposed use, I think it's a reasonable assumption. That's 0.5 parking spaces per seat, 20 seats, 10 parking spaces. So now, what I did, also, the building was previously used by a retail, which had a requirement of 1 parking space for every 300 square feet. So the proposed use would need 6 more parking spaces than what's grandfathered. And I went out on the street and I looked at the parking. Curb parking is posted at 2-hour parking between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And then with a 600-foot walking distance, which is about 2 minutes, I found 55 spaces on Valley Street. And I delineated those on page 5. And I've made multiple inspections, and there was always between 35 and 40 parking spaces available. I've looked at lunchtime on Friday. I've looked at Saturday evening. The main issue, or one of the other issues, is that the parking is not painted. The lines are not striped for delineated parking spaces, so I estimated, just measuring off 22 feet for parking spaces. But I can assure the board that one of the studies I did, the pizzeria down the street had 20 people in it, and there were 35 parking spaces available in this neighborhood. I started basically from the storage building to the north, down to the next block beyond Lackawanna, and then starting basically where the apartments are and going up to I think it's called the French Restaurant. So what are we doing? We're looking for a need of 6, if you take the total, you were looking for a need of 10 parking spaces in an area that has 55 on the street. And as I said, in multiple inspections on Saturday evening and on, I made two Friday lunch visits, and I found that there were always 35 to 40 parking spaces available. So I would suggest to this board that the parking for the patrons is available on the street.
Can I just ask you to clarify a point that I don't fully understand? When you say there has to be X number of parking spaces for a restaurant of this size, just confirm those parking spaces have to be how close to the restaurant?
Well, I took 600 feet.
And you took 600 feet.
I
but what
measured 600 feet. I thought that was a reasonable walking distance.
What do the standards that you're reading from impose a limitation or a distance?
No. I just...
Because what happens if you went 1,200 feet? I mean, how do you...
Based on a walking speed, the usual walking speed of 5 feet per minute, you know, that's...
Not per minute,
What?
not 5 feet per minute,
Well, we use 4 feet per minute when we...
not 4 feet per minute.
4 feet per second, I mean.
4 feet per minute, you're not getting very far.
Right. No, 4 feet per second.
The food will be
Like
overcooked.
When we time traffic lights, we figure 4 feet per second to cross the street. So I use 5, you know, so that's, you know, about 2 or 3 minute walking distance. I thought that was a reasonable distance. So the main issue is whether this is characterized as a fast food or a restaurant. If it's a restaurant, we wouldn't be here. If it's classified as a fast food, obviously we're here. And so and fast foods are conditional uses with those tests: distance from residential, the parking, the minimum lot size, and all those criteria are pretty much criteria for a Burger King or a McDonald's type use. And there was a Supreme Court decision called Coventry Square that cut out or delineated out what the board can evaluate in a D3 or a conditional use variance. And on page 6 in the 3rd paragraph, I state from that Coventry Square decision, a conditional use applicant must show that the site will accommodate the problems associated with the use, even though the proposal does not comply with the conditions the ordinance established to address those problems. I suggest to this board that the issue is parking. Restaurants are allowed across the street or within 1,000 feet of residential. And the issues that I've heard so far is the smell. And that would be no matter what kind of restaurant you had. So I think the applicant has gone one step further to put in the filters and the requirements to satisfy that issue. And the parking is available on the street. And so I would suggest that the conditional use variance can be granted. Now I stepped back and I looked at the master plan reexamination, and I looked at the smart growth plan, and the smart growth plan indicates and states that there's a lack of restaurants in the Valley Street section of town. Well, here's something that meets that or goes to that requirement. The master plan reexamination on page 22 also states that the fast food ordinance has created issues in the CBD regarding new uses that shouldn't be considered fast foods. Well, that's to this point, although not to CBD.
CBD is?
Central Business District. But the definition of fast food is being painted with the whole town, and I think that the board has to look at this use as compared to a permitted use and say that a restaurant is permitted, fast food is not permitted, this is not Burger King, this doesn't have the traffic and the use of a Burger King or I want to paint them all with the same brush. Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, that kind of use. It doesn't have a drive-through, doesn't have an ordering station that's outside, doesn't generate the kind of traffic that we're talking about. So for those reasons, I think the variance can be granted the tests have been met, and the use is an appropriate one based on the smart growth plan and the master plan reexamination.
Mr. Simoff, thank you. The board had a particular concern, and this goes to the fast food statute, so-called McDonald's statute, of the proximity of this restaurant, if it's approved, to other restaurants on the block. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think one of the issues, I mean, obviously my viewpoint is more towards traffic and engineering and those issues, but clearly you don't want, I can see that there's proximity requirements based on the fact that fast foods are high traffic generators. So you don't want to put them next to each other, or you want to have them separate so that they don't generate traffic on top of each other. And you want them on minimum size lots so that you can store the stacking and you can have adequate parking on the site. I mean, if you had to have 40 parking spaces, it would take up close to 30,000 square feet. So when you step back and you look at these requirements, now the pizzeria down the street to the south or the French restaurant to the north, we're far enough away. I've done there's adequate on-street parking for all three uses, and I think that proximity is not. The board shouldn't be concerned with that proximity.
Mr. Simoff, in your professional opinion, can the board grant this application without substantial detriment to the surrounding properties?
Yes. For the reasons I stated.
Okay, and am I correct in understanding your testimony that this application is consistent with the master plan, the revisions to the master plan, and what you refer to in your report as the smart growth plan?
Yes. Susan's firm did a smart growth plan that told people in town as to what uses they'd like to see in certain sections of town, and I think 60 or 70%, 65% of people polled said there was a lack of restaurants in the Valley Street section. This goes to that need.
I have no further questions of the engineer.
Let me just add for the board's understanding that this master plan reexamination report, I have a copy of it here. This is something that we should be familiar with, that it was accepted by the planning board.
It was adopted by the planning board.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's important for this board to understand. It was prepared by Hire Gruel and Associates, but it was adopted by the planning board. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if
yes.
I may clarify the testimony, because
Yes.
I think it's important. You have not, nor are you asking for an interpretation, correct? You are asking for a D3 variance at this point in time.
Well, I'm not familiar with the application.
On fast food, correct?
Yes, we are asking for the D3 variance. That's
so
correct.
just in terms of clarifying, I understand your testimony, but if you could just clarify and just go over those conditions of the conditional use that you are asking for, so that the record is clear as to exactly what conditions you don't meet and the basis for, and you've pretty much given the planning test or the basis for it, but just so that the board is clear as to those conditions that you don't meet.
Now, you're not speaking of the bulk variances.
No.
You're just strictly speaking
I'm
to
talking
the
about
D.
the use variances associated with the conditional use, and that's why you're in front of this board.
Correct.
So I want to make sure that that is absolutely clear and that is the focus, other than the bulk.
Right. I just wanted to clarify your question.
That's
Okay,
what this board is.
On page 3 of my memo, I list them all. I should have numbered them rather than put a dot, but let's attempt to. A site plan prepared by a New Jersey licensed architect, we've done. No part of any building or structure used as a fast food, nor driveway entrance or exit from the same shall be located within 500 feet of any line of a lot upon which is located another fast food. I think we're okay there. We're not within 500 feet of another fast food. No part of any building structure used as a fast food shall be located within 1,000 feet of any residential district. We need that variance. Minimum size lot is 30,000 square feet. We don't meet that.
Wait,
Excuse me?
hey, let's just clarify, because my understanding is it's an existing lot, but that
Yes.
it's under 30,000 square feet.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that, just to clarify, that it's a pre-existing condition, but it doesn't meet
The
that
30,000.
condition, nor the frontage. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
No.
I wanted to clarify.
Correct.
Well, it says, but the second sentence says if a fast food is located on a corner lot, which we are not, the minimum street frontage on each shall be 200 feet. Well, does that apply if you're not on a corner lot?
Well, yes, because you didn't finish the first sentence of that condition.
Oh, I'm sorry, 200 feet, yes. We don't have 200 feet of frontage.
I just wanted
Okay,
for the record.
I understand. Entrance and exit drives to and from any lot which is located a fast food restaurant shall have unrestricted width of not less than 24 feet nor more than 30 feet. We don't meet that. Shall be located not nearer than 20 feet to any lot line and shall be designed to avoid the need for any existing vehicles to back across any of the portion of the public sidewalk or street. We have a driveway, I'm not sure of the width, but the intent is that the parking and the access for the patrons would just be street parking on Valley Street. Minimum distance between driveways on a lot upon which is located a fast food shall be 100 feet, measured from two closest driveway curbs. We have one driveway, so I don't know, I guess that would not apply. Minimum distance of any driveway into the street upon which a fast food restaurant is located from a street intersection shall be 100 feet. Well, we're 100 feet from Valley Street on Lackawanna. Lanes for automobile service windows of fast food shall be physically separated from traffic circulation. That doesn't apply because we don't have lanes for windows of fast food. All fast food shall provide suitable areas for storage of trash designed and constructed to allow no view of the trash storage from the street. I believe we meet that. And the last one on that page, all fast food shall provide a parking ratio of 1 off-street parking for every 30 square feet in the entire establishment, or 1 space for every 3 seats, whichever is greater. I guess that's where I picked up that other requirement. And on the top of page 4, so we don't meet the parking. And on top of page 4, any lot on which is located a fast food restaurant must comply with the front yard, side yard, rear yard requirements for the B1, B2, or B3 business zone in which the lot is located. We don't, if that's pre-existing, we don't meet those setbacks. But then in the next sentence, or the next paragraph, these conditions, when you step back and you look at them, is for a 3,500 square foot McDonald's on a 30,000 square foot lot with 50 or 60 parking spaces and a drive-through window, which this is not the case.
Thank you. Thank you for, I appreciate that exercise in reminding us that this is not an interpretation, it's a D3 variance, and we have to recognize these various issues in considering whether a conditional use variance can be given. Thank you. Do we have other questions for Mr. Simoff? You have some? Sure. Go ahead.
You said you made multiple inspections?
Yes, 4 inspections.
That was
Made
the
2 on
multiple.
Friday. I made 2 on a Friday afternoon, and I made 2 on a Saturday night.
Why'd you pick those times?
Because those are classically the highest usage. Lunchtime is, I picked lunchtime, so I went from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. And Friday, I assumed, was the busiest lunch activity. And then I picked Saturday night because I thought Saturday night classically is the highest usage of a restaurant.
Is it the highest usage of a fast food restaurant? It's not, is it?
Well, but when you step back and you look, we've got, on the order of 50 parking spaces.
That's a different issue, how
Okay.
many you have. We're talking about,
Well, as I said, I don't think that the parking requirement that's been promulgated by the ITE and, the other reference material says we need about 7 parking spaces. Whether there's
excuse me,
available.
Mr. Soft, that's not what I was
Yeah,
asking.
but what I'm saying is, I went out and I used professional judgment as to when I thought. If we were close at lunchtime, if I only had 5 left and there were 50 parking spaces out of 55 taken, I would have done a more detailed study. I would have done, more research. But when you have 35 or 40 vacant spaces, the retail uses and the uses along this section of Valley Street have an established parking requirement or parking characteristic. So maybe if Saturday lunch is peak, you're still not going to need more than 5 or 7 parking spaces for this use.
What's the established parking characteristic? What does that mean?
Well, I'm saying that based on the IT, we need about 7 parking spaces.
I'm talking about
I'm sorry, I think what you're saying, that there's a characteristic in this neighborhood, in those feet that you looked at, of the intensity of use of those spaces.
Right.
You're looking at the added load of this use onto the characteristic use at the times that you went out and surveyed.
Right. The only factor that might add to this would be the park on a Sunday afternoon or something like that. But then this use probably would avail themselves of many park goers. As I said, if we were close, I determined, and based on the research and the interpreting your ordinance, I think that the real demand for this proposed use is about 7 parking spaces. If I was close when I did my studies on Saturday night, I did my studies on Friday at lunch, if I was close to the 50, I would say yes. But midday Friday, Saturday evening, when the residents are home, the stores are closed, I have the comfort that the 50 parking spaces is adequate. Now, maybe I didn't, maybe if I went on a Saturday afternoon, maybe there would have been 35 available parking spaces instead of 40.
And you pick, let me ask, so you figure 5 feet per second for this? To get
As
your
a walking distance, yes.
Yeah, but why is it 4 feet per second for other studies?
Well, like a traffic signal, when you time the amount of time to cross a crosswalk, they use the federal government suggests 4 feet per second.
So why do you pick 5?
Because this is for people that are infirm. If you're going to walk to the restaurant, I chose 5. It's not an unreasonable. It's not unreasonable. When you're crossing a street, you have a little bit more pressure.
Okay. And so if this restaurant had 10 seats, what would you figure the parking requirement is?
3-4 spaces.
What if it had no seats?
Two or 3 spaces.
I mean, if their business was very busy and people came to pick up orders, you would figure that's okay, they don't need any spaces. And people who are picking up their orders will what? How will they get there?
No. The ITE has done studies for lunchtime, and they do studies for evening. And they did it, as I stated, they did them for quality restaurant, which is like 0.3 per seat. They did them for like a diner or a high turnover family restaurant, which is 0.4.
0.5.
I stated in my report.
0.54.
0.52.
No, the 0.52 is for fast food without a drive-through.
I'm sorry.
It's between 0.35 and 0.52. I don't recall the number. It's like 0.4, 0.45. But the highest factor was for a drive-through. I used a fast food without a drive-through, and they recommend 0.52 per space. So a fast food without a drive-through is 0.52. I thought it was a conservative number, and that's the number I chose to look at this proposed use. Fast foods without a drive-through are people that walk up, buy the stuff, and carry it out as well as sit down.
Okay, so that's 0.52 per what?
Per seat.
I'm saying, what if it had no seats?
Well, you can't have zero, but...
Well, you can, can't you?
Yeah, I'm saying, but common sense would say that it had to have something. I think we're splitting hairs.
Well, I don't think so. I just don't understand. I don't understand your reasoning. That's all. I don't understand.
Well, your ordinance for a fast food gives two factors. One for every 30 square feet of the building, of the entire establishment. And then it says, or one for every 3 seats. Well, that's 0.33. So these numbers are all dancing around they're all dancing around a requirement, and the ITE says it's instead of 0.33 that your ordinance says as one of the tests, it says 0.52. I use the 0.52.
But wouldn't you think there would be a difference between a fast food restaurant, whatever that is, that primarily serves people sitting down, and a fast food restaurant that, for example, primarily serves pickup orders? I mean, don't they have to have different parking requirements?
You just have to use a little common sense or a little judgment in the interpretation of a rule or a requirement. This is only 1,000 square feet. This is not a 3,500 square foot fast food. You looked at the site plan, you look at the floor plan layout. The client intends to build it the way it shows on the plan. And
but there's also a use. It's not just looking at a plan, it's also the actual use. Isn't that true?
Of course, but one of the conditions of the use is the 20 seats. He shows a floor plan with 20 seats.
What if those 20 seats were like barely used and most of it was takeout?
Then I think it would be less.
Less parking.
Yeah.
So people would get to the restaurant how?
No, it wouldn't be 7 or 10 spaces. It would be 4 or 5 spaces. I think I can't give you, and that's based on just my professional opinion. There's no formula for calculating what kind of parking requirement you have for
takeout.
100% takeout. And I don't think your ordinance can contemplate that either.
Well, I think they can. They could use the square footage.
Well, then, based on that, you need, what do we say, like 40 parking spaces? How are you going to get 40, if you talk about 1 or 2 people per car, how are you going to get 80 people in this small area? It's just an interpretation that doesn't make sense. And I'm not criticizing the ordinance is geared towards is toward conventional fast food. Here you have a specific layout, a specific seating arrangement, and 1,000 square feet. I'm not, I think that a 40 parking space requirement for this space is totally unreasonable.
Mr. Parlapiano?
Mr. Simoff, I want to talk a bit more about the takeout, and I think when we have a chance to talk with the operator of the restaurant and can understand better the mix of business, how much can this restaurant be profitable just filling the seats in the restaurant, for example, and what mix would you be looking for? I think we can learn more about it there. But I think that, or let me ask this question, if it's takeout, how long on average would people be in the parking space?
5 minutes,
And if they were sitting down to eat, how long would they be in the parking space?
maybe between 10 minutes and a half hour.
And so a single parking space could serve more business as
Double the
takeout
business.
than it
Double or
could.
triple the business.
And to me, I think that's part of this question in terms of load, is that a single space isn't always a single space. It's how heavily it's used in the course of an hour. And for takeout, a single space might support 5 or 6 people coming, picking up an order and leaving, whereas it might only support one person coming in and eating. And I think there's a complex mix there, but I do think we need to hear from the operator about the mix of business he anticipates in the restaurant.
I mean, characteristically, you see quite often uses that have no seats. And I think that by encouraging seats, you encourage people to sit and to dine. And I think that's what you want for this district.
Okay, we have other questions? Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Simoff. And this came in, I think Mr. Dwyer had the same concern. You mentioned a implied variance, and I say implied because with the former retail use, I'm not aware that there was any variance granted for parking.
It got there somehow.
I've been on this board for over a decade. Do not assume that things were done properly.
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave it.
I'm on the planning board in my town. I understand exactly
Okay,
what you're
so
saying.
things happen. Life isn't always so orderly, and sometimes I'm thankful it's not. But I'm not aware of any variance, and that wasn't presented to us.
Right, and when we checked the records, we were not able to find a parking variance in effect for this premises. The applicant's been advised of that.
So that's not it's a bit of a zinger, but I just wanted to be clear on the record that there's no variance.
The way I see this application playing out is the residents are going to park in the back, and the employees are going to park in the back, and with 1 or 2 employees and the residents, and then the patrons are going to use the front.
Okay, well, so then let's move to that. That was the other part. This application proposes 5 spaces, including 1 handicap space, and so 2 cars would be for residential, and then 3 cars for employees, I presume. So those spaces are there, and that would be considered in any kind of parking space requirement for any restaurant, as far as I'm concerned, that employees park on the lot too.
Yes. And that's what's going to happen, because there's a 2-hour parking limit on the street.
Okay. We'll ask Mr. Molinaro about the garage. The deed restriction, I guess we'll ask it. We're not going to ask you about that, because that's not your bailiwick. Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up on your question about the parking in the back. And very appropriately answered by Mr. Simoff because of his transportation, traffic expertise.
You're being very kind. You're being very kind.
I know you are. So the way that this is, dimensioned is there's a 17-foot driveway aisle.
Can you get closer to the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. There's a 17-foot driveway aisle, and I can yell, thank you. And no turnaround. And it just doesn't seem to be the most ideal situation in terms of going in and out, other than if it were for, particularly if it were for employees. In terms of frequency of use for customers, it seems to be a bit awkward.
Correct.
How would you evaluate
it won't work.
that?
It won't work for customers. I mean, that's clear. When one evaluates this design, you take a look at the frequency of turnover. And the turnover, the employee comes at the beginning of their shift and hopefully stays the entire shift and leaves at the end of the shift. A turnover of 2 or 3 times per hour just won't work.
So your recommendation from a circulation perspective is those rear proposed parking spaces would be limited to the residents, the handicap,
Yes,
and
correct,
employees.
correct.
And that there would be no, and that goes, of course, part of this goes to the question about the garage and other uses, how this mixes. But I just wanted to clarify that because it is an awkward, it appeared to
No,
be
you're
an
right.
awkward.
The lot is, in the front is 35 feet, in the back it's 26 feet wide. It's restricted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And no matter what use it's put to, that would be the layout. If it was a permitted use, a restaurant or a retail or any use in the B2, B3 zone, that's probably the way it's going to work, and the way it's worked in the past.
Okay, do we have other questions from the board for Mr. Simoff? Okay, now we'll take questions from members of the public for Mr. Simoff about his testimony.
Can I ask a question while we're waiting? Mr. Chairman?
Okay, yes.
John Perrell, 310 Dallas Street. The question is about when you looked at these parking spots. I've lived here about 30 years, close to 30 years. Right now,
Speaking into the microphone.
Speaking to the microphone.
right now,
sir.
there's a lot of vacancies right in that area. That you have that store. You have the store right next to the corner, which used to be the dog grooming place. And you have the garage behind the house that's in between the two places I'm talking about that was a furniture place. They're all vacant right now. So your parking is going to be a little bit better right now. And I'm sure that people don't intend to keep, the owners don't intend to keep these places vacant. So you're going to see an increase in parking. I find it extremely hard to believe you found 50 parking spots. I've lived here 30 years. I've had times where I couldn't park in front of my own house. I had to park, down the street. Another thing is the times. The park is primarily used from 3 to 6 every day. Okay? It's designed for very small children.
Ask a
Parking is
question,
needed.
sir, please ask a question that Mr. Simoff can answer.
All right. Well, I just wanted to know, I guess, I just find it hard to believe that you found 50 spaces and,
I found 50 available, and at any one time I found between 35 and 40 vacant.
And the other thing about the fast food, I don't understand that myself. What would make this a fast food or a restaurant? And I guess the difference means a lot to you guys as far as being allowed to do what you want to do. I don't know what makes this a fast food place, except that I would think that a place that is primarily, right now, I believe, does a lot of takeout, would have to be considered a fast food place more than a restaurant type.
Okay, that's not a question either, but that's it. And I'm not belittling you, sir. You can come up and you can speak at length about that in a couple of minutes. It's just the way the procedure goes. This is your opportunity to ask a question of the expert.
Well, what makes it a fast food?
The definition. But that, see, the master plan reexamination states that also. Says we have a problem with the definition of a fast food. So I think, as I said, I would suggest that this is not a classic fast food restaurant.
I don't know. I don't know who to ask, and I would think myself, like I said, a place that does a lot of takeout would be.
And you'll tell us about that in a couple of minutes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Sima, could I ask you a hypothetical question? How would this restaurant be functionally different from, let's say, a traditional pizzeria in terms of its use or balance between patrons that sit down and pick up and take out?
No different.
Thank you.
Okay, hi, Cindy Cardone again. I heard you quote a quality restaurant study. I'm just curious, was this study done with strictly on-the-street parking and no parking lot to go along with a restaurant that needed so many variances?
No, it's from the reference material produced by the ITE. As an example, I'm a member of the ITE.
I don't understand that. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
The Institute of Transportation Engineers is a nonprofit professional society where members contribute data, and they've had, I believe, 4 versions of a study entitled Parking Generation. The 4th version came out about 2 years ago, and based on data submitted by members, they do studies of parking requirements, and these are all studies of parking on the street, or parking in a parking lot.
That's exactly my question. So you don't have any studies that are strictly on-street parking?
Well, I think
that we can base on some real knowledge, because you don't have a parking lot, and I
No,
don't
but
mean to be.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, when you study a parking lot, if you had a self-contained use.
No, the question was, is there any data anywhere where you can tell us something about this situation?
I think that situation is applicable because they were able to directly correlate the parking spaces used to the number of seats. If you had a use like this and you tried to correlate how many people came and parked on the street, it would be a difficult assignment. But what the ITE did is they took a fast food, independent.
And decided how many people come to that fast food.
And decide how many people come to that, how big the parking lot was occupied. And so that's the most critical analysis. Because there's no, if you say nobody parks on the street and you assume it.
And the data for the 600 feet of walking distance, where did that come from? That people would actually walk that?
Well, I assumed a 2-minute walking time.
Okay, no, fair enough. You mentioned the pizzeria. We have Seton Hall kids across the street. That's basically a lot of the 20 people you saw in the pizzeria were not taking up parking spots. And again, I come from living across the street 30 years, so. The other thing is the zones. Your interpretation of a fast food zone, and you've made a statement that if it was a restaurant, we wouldn't be here. But living in South Orange, I know better, because 20 years ago, we tried to sell our house to a deli, and we were met with these same ordinances that are in place to protect people. And I'm sure if you live next door to a fast food restaurant, you'd want to protect your property value too, and the fact that you did not purchase the property in this particular zone. You're asking for a change of this zone, are you not? Meeting no requirements?
No, you're in the B2 zone. This is in the B3 zone. I don't have, so I can't tell you whether delis are permitted in the B2. I didn't do that analysis.
But a deli wouldn't have been permitted in the building that you're using either. I mean, that's just it. The ordinances are there, and you're asking for a variance of every single one.
I'm not sure a deli I don't know how a deli would be interpreted. We're here because this has been interpreted as fast food. I don't know whether a deli, I don't know the specifics of your deli application.
Okay. I guess, let's see. Oh, I guess that's it. I guess that's it for now. The rest.
Thank you. Do we have other questions for Mr. Simoff?
I did, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear for sure whether or not the applicant was asking for relief from that section of the conditional uses that required the trash to be concealed.
They show a trash enclosure on the site.
So you're not asking for relief? Is that correct?
I believe we comply with that, Commissioner.
Yeah, they mentioned the trash, they have it on the plan of the trash is in back.
In the rear.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one question, follow-up to Mr. Simoff? No?
Okay. Just one.
Okay, this will just be quick. Yeah. Mr. Simoff, the data that you referenced with the ITE standards, that's information regarding actual projects that have been built?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And what's your point there, Mr. Dunn?
No, it's not based on hypothetical studies, it's actually based on real buildings.
Okay.
So the numbers they're coming up with are based on real projects.
Okay. For Mr. Simoff? Go ahead. Go, walk to the microphone.
About 500 feet from the existing food place, like pizzeria. Isn't that within 500 feet? La Vera's?
No, No, it says no part of any building or structure used as a fast food restaurant, nor any driveway entrance or exit to or from the same site shall be located within 500 feet of any line of a lot upon which located another fast food restaurant.
Isn't there one located within 500 feet?
I don't know if that's considered a fast food.
Like the pizzeria is not a fast food?
Well, it is, that pizzeria restaurant is within 500 feet.
But the question is whether it's a fast food.
Right.
Pretty fast.
Right, thank you. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Simoff? Thank you. Mr. Bertone?
Mr. Chairman, if it please the board, I'd like to call the owner of the property, Mr. Molinaro.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give here this evening will be the whole truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Anthony Molinaro, 319 Regal Boulevard, Livingston.
Okay, we've had a request at this point to take a 5-minute break, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick I'm going to take a 5-minute break at this point. We'll come back in 5 minutes. All right, back in session. Where's Miss Gould? I thought she was back.
It's like hooded mice or cats.
Should we get started, Mr. Mullenweg? Let's get started. Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Ms. Grill will join us just momentarily. Okay, so Mr. Molinaro, he's sworn in, and I think we stopped after that point. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Mr. Molinaro, you are the owner of the subject property at 311 Valley Street?
Yes.
How long have you owned this property?
20 years?
And you also own the adjacent property?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Molinaro, I'm sorry, speak more closely into the microphone.
Now, are you aware in the deed to the subject property, the property that's the subject to the application, that there is an easement given to the adjacent property that you happen to own?
Yes.
Okay. And that, do you know the purpose of that easement?
To access the back
Okay.
of my property.
And the board had a particular concern as to what you do with that small building that's in the back of the property. Can you clarify that for the
I
board?
rent that to a small landscaping company. He stores his equipment in the garage and 1 or 2 trucks.
Is there a lot of activity in and out of that building?
No, he leaves in the morning and comes in at night.
Nothing during the day?
No. Not that I know of, no.
I have no further questions of Mr. Molinaro.
Okay, do we have questions for Mr. Molinaro? All right. Go ahead, Mr. Adler.
Is there room enough for a turnaround if that landscaper's truck is not parked there?
Is it room enough if it's not parked there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was there today, and the landscaper's truck was in front of the garage.
Right.
You couldn't turn a car around. Could you turn it around?
Well, I don't think you can turn it around anywhere in that lot.
Okay. And the right-of-way is, maybe you would know, Mr. Bertone, is against the building towards towards the railroad tracks.
Lackawanna, that's correct.
But there are cars parked there. Is it kind of a...
You know, there's a bunch of mechanic shops down here, and they found a way to get along, and they, you know, it's easier for them to park there, come down the middle of the,
Okay.
of that, you know, the middle of that whole access area.
Okay.
Mr. Bertone, did you want to offer this as an exhibit?
Oh, yes, I thank you, Mr. Chairman. May we please have the deed, Mr. Molinaro's deed marked?
So this would be A3?
Right.
Of April 3rd?
Right.
Okay, and I actually took the time of obsessively going over this right-of-way, and it does describe that easement through the property towards the rear of the property there. So it is there in the deed restriction. That was a question we had. I have a question for Mr. Molinaro. That you rent out that garage to a landscaping company. Now, I've taken a peek at the space back there recently, and I've seen lots of cars parked there. And obviously that former florist shop is vacant now, and it's your property. You can do with it what you want. But now you're proposing to have the restaurant here, and we're looking at this, that there will be spaces dedicated, a handicap space, 2 spaces for the resident, and 2 additional spaces. So how do we ensure that it just doesn't just become parking for your body shop?
Well, the parking there is, I barter with a couple of the mechanics down there, and when they need to drop a car, they leave it. And if he was to move in there, that wouldn't happen anymore.
What if
I'd rather have a tenant like him than $25 a month, you know.
Can this board make any sort of condition upon the use of those spaces. You know, aside from the difficulty of enforcement.
Because there is a parking variance here that's being requested, I think it's reasonable to ask the applicant if they would agree to preserve those spaces as set forth in the plans for the use of this particular use, this building use.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Dwyer. Our application contemplates 2 of those spaces for what we now deem employee use and 1 for handicap, so it's only appropriate that that be stipulated in any approval.
That whole back area would be available for him. I just need it for the landscaper with his truck in the back. All of those cars would just...
Well, we need 3.
Yeah, but you got the whole lot if you need it.
If I may, am I hearing it's more than just spaces? It's the entire rear, other than the garage, that there will be no storage or no use of that area for any other use or drop-off or anything
No.
else? Correct?
Yep.
Okay, so that's, I think...
So we're talking about the rear of that building.
The only one that would be the truck for the landscape.
But that's in the,
That's
in-
down below.
No, I know that, but that's in the garage?
That's outside the garage, in front of the garage.
That's in front of the garage.
I mean, if you, I saw some of the members down there today, there's probably 10 cars that fit back there, if not more. If we eliminate those,
Well, right, you're saying it, that's exactly what I saw when and you had them kind of parked diagonally there.
Right.
And so if you do that, you can squeeze in a bunch more cars, and that's fine if you're just running a body shop or whatever you do down, or mechanic shop down there. But that's not the case now, you're reserving these spots, so that would have to end. Now, I don't think it's any surprise that enforcing that would be difficult, but at the very least to have that as a condition, should it come up, it would be in the variance if, as part of the use of this restaurant.
I agree. 3 spaces for the applicant, if the application is approved, of course, and 2 for the residents.
Okay.
So wouldn't this be covered in a lease agreement?
The lease does contemplate those spaces.
So that way that if in fact any of the spaces are used in a way that we don't contemplate them being, then there's recourse because the lease will have the right to use those spaces.
Yes, certainly the
So
applicant
that's-
has the exclusive right to the 3 spaces, 2 for the employees and 1 for handicap.
So I think that's enough, that's even a better protection.
I don't have the lease with me, but I believe she's got 2 spots.
It's 3.
No, for upstairs?
Oh, for upstairs is 2 spaces, yes.
Ms. Gruhl.
Well, the concern is not necessarily the spaces, the concern is accessibility and access to those spaces. And if you look at the older plans that were submitted, there are photos that show the rear and all the parking, so it's part of the record at this point. And I gather that the 3rd photo down shows the landscaping truck, I assume, and I may be wrong, and shows other spaces parking, other spaces and other cars and such that are parked all over. So you're talking, again, clarifying, it's more than just the spaces. You're going to not put anything out there other than 1 landscape truck associated with the storage in the garage.
Yes.
So would it be fair to say that the right to use the spaces would include the right to the reasonable access as well? The access to the spaces that the applicant has the right to use would not be impaired?
Has to be.
Right.
That's part of his lease.
No sense giving him a parking spot
If
that
he
he can't get to.
That he can't get to, right.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have other questions? Members of the public have a question for Mr. Molinaro? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Molinaro.
You're welcome.
You got all the issues from last meeting.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bertone.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further witnesses except for the applicant. He's here. I have no particular questions of him. I don't know if the board has any.
Mr. Parlapiano, you said that you had some questions for the applicant.
Come on up, Mr. Chairman.
Hello. My name
I
is
believe,
Onani.
sir, you were sworn at the last meeting, correct?
Yes.
You're still under oath, okay?
Oh, yeah.
I understand you testified about this last time, and I apologize I wasn't here, but can you describe the mix of business you anticipate between people sitting down at the tables and people doing straight takeout?
Yes, correct.
What percentage, Mr. Teixeira, do you think is going to be takeout, and which percentage do you think is going to be sit-down?
Really, what I think, I don't know, maybe, well, I don't know, maybe 50-50, maybe not. I don't know, in the future, we see, but really, I don't know.
Do you think
I don't know
there's
exactly, no.
I know you don't know exactly, but do you anticipate that there's going to be more takeout than sit-down, or?
I think so, yeah, more takeout. That's what I think, It'll be better for us to more takeout,
Why would that be better for you?
Less work inside.
Well, that's a candid answer.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what else to ask about that.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, now, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have any questions? Okay, so now we'll take statements. Well, why don't you give a closing argument, Mr. Bertone, and then we'll take some statements.
Thank
from
you,
members of
Mr.
the
Chairman.
public.
The application, again, it's a permitted use, albeit a conditional use. And the only reason that it is a conditional use is because we fall, or possibly fall, under this so-called fast food ordinance. The expert has testified that clearly this is not a fast food restaurant of the McDonald's, Burger King, Sonic caliber. It's a small barbecue takeout position. I believe that the expert has demonstrated the negative criteria. The applicant has taken the second step to ensure that this application, if approved, has a minimum impact upon the neighbors in terms of smoke, lighting, and other disturbances. The restaurant use is contemplated and desired according to the town's master plan. And for those reasons, we ask the board to approve the application.
Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Cardone?
Okay, let's see, I guess my biggest problem is the zoning altogether.
You speak closely.
Every single thing requires you guys to make a variance. None of it meets the criteria for even a restaurant, let alone a fast food restaurant. The pizzeria is within 500 feet, is mostly takeout, and so is the Burnett Barbecue. There are single-family residences within 1,000 feet. Now, is that something with a fast food zone? I mean, you are talking very close to residential zone. Mine is a residential with commercial use. When I purchased the property 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. The zones change, the rules change. I understand Anthony needs some rent. I mean, there are properties that are empty. But is it really the best choice to put a barbecue fast food restaurant in South Orange, number one, and number two, so close to a park that at least 150 2 to 4-year-olds play in daily? I guess that's my statement. I think that he's asking for too many things. It's not one thing. It's not the parking. It's not the setback, it's not the square footage, it's not the sides, it's everything. There's not one thing he is compliant with. And property values, would you want a fast food coming into your neighborhood? Yes, I bought in a commercial neighborhood, but it was an eyeglass store when I bought. And then it went to a bridal salon. You know, it wasn't a fast food restaurant. And you guys know as well as I do, barbecues make smoke. I mean, even with a terrific vent, state of the art, there's going to be smoke.
Thank you. Any other statements from members of the public? Okay, so now is the time when we talk among ourselves about this, challenge each other, ask each other questions, bounce ideas, talk about potential, if you're considering approving it, about conditions that you might want to impose, these sorts of things. So does anybody have anything to say?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Don.
When we left last meeting, we had a number of concerns, and we gave the applicant an opportunity to, rather than go for a vote last time, to come back to us with some additional information and clarifications. And I think my biggest concerns were addressing the variance criteria, the parking, and the issue of air quality. And after the last meeting, I did a little checking on the issue of air quality too, because as an architect, I do these kind of spaces. And the system that they're proposing is the system that my checking led me to. So I think that if we checked every restaurant, fast food or full service or quality restaurant in town, we would probably find that this is probably the only one that has this kind of treatment on it. And I think that that's critical if we decide to approve it, given this specific location of this. Not that other restaurants aren't close to residential areas, but this is a new application in an area. I don't share the neighbor's concern about the kids in the park. The fan is on the roof. The fan is now filtered on the roof. I think there'll be very little off-site migration. Very unlike what exists at the other barbecue that we're talking about. Because I have a feeling that that system that's in there is not a correctly functioning system. I think Mr. Simoff did a very good job of summarizing the issues of parking and use. I think I've made a point in the last month and a half to drive by this site as much as possible, as many times as I can during the day. And I have, you know, it's anecdotal evidence because I'm not going by on a regular basis every single day, but I would say that I've probably been by the site over 30 times, just driving back and forth. And I agree that there is street parking available in that location. I don't see that the parking that this small restaurant is going to generate not being met by what's available on the street. I think the back of the site, as we all know, is going to be parking for the apartments and parking for the employees, and we're not going to have users of the building, patrons of the building going around the back. And, you know, while I was on the fence at the last application, I think that this is an application I could support based on the information that's been given, especially when you hear what our master plan and the smart growth plan are advising for this area.
Thank you. We have other comments, questions? Let me put my 2 bits in here as far as doing a balancing test of the positive and negative criteria as I see it. Is the positive criteria are contained in the smart growth plan that Mr. Simoff mentioned, which is incorporated into the master plan re-examination report. And that was a survey by Higher Gruhl that surveyed residents in the area, and they suggested that there was a dearth of restaurants in the area. So that is a fact of South Orange residents mentioned that. And there was also a statement, as Mr. Simoff correctly cited, in the master plan reexamination report that the fast food ordinance causes problems for restaurants in the central business district. That will be no difference down in the Valley Business District. It's what it's talking about. That is a concise way of saying that this ordinance is intended for Burger Kings, McDonald's, Wendy's, etc. So the positive criteria are, this is a business zone. Let's remember that. And I think Mrs. Cardone, you said that. You admitted that. This is this is a business zone, and yes, the town has grown up around the residences, but that happens. That's how business zones are created. South Orange needs businesses. We're extremely highly taxed. This potentially brings a good business into town, and as we stated, many of these storefronts are vacant right now. Now, the parking situation might change if it were full with lots of businesses, but it's not full, and it's not going to be full unless there is some amount of judgment exercised by boards such as this to allow in hopefully reputable businesses. So I think the positive criteria are satisfied. As far as negative criteria, the entire board was concerned about the exhaust, and Mr. Don, being an architect, came up with a good example, and the applicant, I think, forthrightly acknowledged that this could be a problem, and they came up with what seems like a high-end exhaust system to help rid some of the nuisance of the smell for the neighbors who are living nearby. So it wasn't as if we're neglectful of the neighbors, and it isn't as if this applicant was neglectful in its proposal there. So that addressed the smoke. As far as the parking, Mr. Simoff gave his testimony a bit informal, but nonetheless he's a professional. I did what Mr. Don did, except I've jogged past this site many times on evenings and at lunchtime, and I've also driven by it a number of times. And I agree with Mr. Don. It's purely anecdotal, but during lunch times and evening times, both on weekdays and weeknights, I have seen plenty of parking in the area. Again, that might change if it were a vibrant area, but it's not a vibrant area. Hopefully this restaurant might be the nidus that would create a vibrant area. I think there's plenty of parking along the streets there, particularly along the park where I find it's usually empty. The lighting, as far as the negative criteria, has been addressed with in the rear of the building, and it seems reasonable lighting, not overly bright. Now, importantly, the fast food ordinance. Yes, Ms. Cardone correctly points out there's several exceptions to satisfying the fast food ordinance. I view this restaurant, and I'm a good fence sitter, as a hybrid. It is a fast food, yes, so this wasn't an interpretation case. On the other hand, it is not the fast food restaurant contemplated by the ordinance. The ordinance does go a long way to protect the townspeople from a McDonald's or a Burger King. That is not what this application is. It's lower volume and it's on a smaller lot. There won't be the same amount of traffic and litter associated with one of these classic drive-through restaurants. And we're not approving a drive-through restaurant for this application. So the issue of being within 1,000 feet of for example, for a residence, well, if it were a regular restaurant, that wouldn't apply. And so again, it is technically fast food, but hybridly so, and in a less intense of a fast food restaurant. So I'm less concerned about that. And I can tell you, as we know, along South Orange Avenue and along Valley Street, there are restaurants all within 1,000 feet of a residence. And I've lived here. I've lived here over a decade, and I use these restaurants. I don't hear people complaining about them. So we have to use our experience too in addressing these. So I think the negative criteria have been either mitigated or minor relative to the positive criteria in this case. And I would, of course, impose some conditions to further mitigate the negative. We mentioned the air quality engineering brand is one. The ramp is a second condition. The third one is the current signage is not in compliance, and that the applicant will make signage in compliance. And that the 5 spaces and area for parking for those spaces be reserved for this use. And access to those spaces. And that we propose those as conditions. So with those conditions, I think the positive criteria outweigh the negative criteria. Mrs. Gruhl.
Mr. Chairman, I think that there was also some discussion in terms of condition that the board may want to consider is no customer parking in the back because of the way that as a matter of fact, the applicant spoke of that.
That we would say you can't put customers back there?
That it's geared to the employees and the owners for long-term use versus for back and forth. Mr. Simoff testified to that in terms of access to that rear. It's just, I want to raise it. I just thought that the board may or may not want to consider that as a condition.
Well, I mean, people are just not going to, customers are just not going to even know about that space. They're going to park along the street. So I don't even know why we would need to condition. Am I missing something?
I don't think so.
I mean, thank you for your concern, but I just don't see that as relevant in this case. They're just not going to go back there. Except maybe if a handicapped person wants a place to park, maybe they could get back there, and that's why we're making this condition that there's access. And that would be a relatively unusual event. Okay, thank you. We have other comments? Okay, may we have Mr. Grumman?
No, I just want to concur with Mr. Dunn and Chairman Reeves. I think that they very succinctly articulated the same thought process that I have. I also wanted to compliment the applicant as professionals for really addressing very specifically the issues that we had raised before, and I think, certainly to my satisfaction, I think overall in balancing deciding whether to vote in favor or not of this application, I think overwhelmingly feel that it's in the best interests of the town, and I think it will perhaps spur other growth. And since the recent reports have encouraged us to foster this development, I think that voting in favor of this application is consistent with that directive as well.
Thank you. May we have a motion then? Or I guess we should give you the option here.
May I just have 1 minute to consult with my client?
Okay.
He's aware that we require an affirmative vote of 5 because of the D variance. So
Okay.
if I may just have 1 minute?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, sir.
That's the market, you say that. So down here.
Mr. Chair, I again reviewed the matter with my client, and he would ask if we have a vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so may we have a motion, since you supported it, Mr. Groman or Mr. Don, a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application. I'd like to run through your conditions one more time.
Okay, application with the conditions of an air quality engineering brand air cleaner. They mentioned that brand, right?
Correct.
Air quality engineering brand air cleaner, that's one condition. Two,
That would be subject to discussion with Sal in terms of the adequacy of the particular model.
Right. Well, I think that'll be a function of building permit, because they're going to have to submit the details of that system.
right.
Okay.
Aren't there no rules as far as that goes?
Besides on these variances, you guys?
Yes, we're about to decide right now, Mr. Cardone.
Air quality is the brand name, Mr. Chair?
Air Quality Engineering is the brand name
The one listed on the exhibit?
on the exhibit.
Okay.
It's the lower right-hand corner of the front page.
Air Quality Engineering.
Okay.
Okay, number two would be a handicapped ramp in the rear of the building.
Again, the details of that are to be coordinated.
The
with-
details to be coordinated with our village engineer.
Right.
Number three would be signage in compliance with our town ordinance, noting that the current plans don't show signage in compliance. Thank you, Mrs. Gruhl. And number four, the 5 spaces in the rear of the building will retain free access to those spaces.
Right.
Okay, so those are the conditions. So you make a
Next.
motion,
And then lighting as amended.
and lighting as, lighting as amended in the current application.
Right. Yes, so with those conditions, I make it I move to approve the application and the variances requested.
I would second that motion.
Okay, Mr. Don,
Yes.
Mr. Groman,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes?
Mrs. Semper,
Yes.
Mr. Aller,
No.
and Ms. Waring.
Okay, thank you. The application is approved. Okay, do we have any other business for this evening? We've approved the minutes already. We've approved the minutes. Okay, is there any other business? Okay, when's our next meeting? May 8th. May 8th is the next meeting, not May 1st? Oh, that's right, May 8th, there was that difference. So it's May 8th, it's not the first Tuesday, it's the second Tuesday. So remember that. Thank you, Jetta. Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.